right, here we are, hour number 2 on a Friday, and you know what that means. It's Greg Cosell time, senior producer from NFL Films, also co-host of ESPN's NFL Matchup Show. And we are down to the last Friday before the draft. We're getting our last position group in here with Greg before the real deal happens, and it's offensive line. Greg, how you doing?
Doing great, Brownie. Steve, how are you guys?
We're doing good. We're doing good. So we want to kind of nail down some guys that could be there for the Bills, either at the bottom of round 1 or maybe a little later. And we've been focusing on tackle, maybe out of personal preference. Start on the outside, work your way in.
I guess, ask this. Let me ask this as a general question first before we get into these names that we've got listed here. How likely is it that teams go out thinking they could get a tackle, and then if he doesn't work out at tackle, just slide him down to guard? Do you find that to be common or a philosophy of any kind, or do teams now say, I like this guy as a guard, we're going to draft him as a guard?
I think a lot of that depends on a couple of factors, Steve. I think that arm length is a very important factor when you talk to offensive line coaches. Some more than others, obviously, but I think, like, for instance, Peter Skoronski is a great example of this. His arm length is really, really short for a tackle. So people say, well, he played tackle in the Big Ten for, 3 years, did a really nice job, so he's a tackle. But I've also talked to offensive line coaches who said there's no way he's going to play tackle in the National Football League with 32-inch arms. In fact, I spoke to one who said that center would probably be his best position as he transitions to the league. So, I think that that's one thing that is looked at. And then the other thing that's looked at, of course, is feet and range in terms of vertical sets. Because you talk to coaches and what they tell you is it's a third down game. You have to be able to pass protect on third down. And you don't want to have to be in a situation as an offense where you keep a tight end in or a back in, even as chippers, because then they're not primary receivers. So what happens at that point is you have to limit your offensive pass game options and your route concepts and combinations. So I think it comes down to the ability to pass protect on third down one-on-one. So I think those two things really stand out.
All right, well, let's begin with a guy that I think as little as a month ago we were thinking would get down to the Bills potentially at pick 27, but he has moved up the board precipitously as draftniks have heard more from the people in the know. Darnell Wright from Tennessee, who played right tackle, and, for a 332-pound guy, has some pretty nimble feet.
Yeah, I really, really like this guy. I mean, I don't fancy myself. I try to talk to people, as I just told you, about O-line play. Maybe I know more than I think I do, but I never, I try to keep learning, Brownie, just because it's one of those positions. Most people, as you play it, don't grow up, studying offensive line in great detail. I watched him last summer, and he played left tackle in 2021. And quite frankly, I thought he was bad. This year at right tackle, I thought he was absolutely outstanding. He's the most powerful offensive tackle in this draft. If one game is representative of what he is, all you have to do is put on the game against Alabama, where he just stoned Will Anderson snap after snap after snap. And if you didn't know who Will Anderson was, you'd think he was probably a late-round draft choice based on that game. But this guy is massive. He's got good feet. I just think he's a really, really good prospect. I mean, I would bet he'll move up. Again, I'm not good with that, Brownie, but he's not going to be late first round, second round. He's going before that.
Yeah. Greg, do you have a man crush on Darnell Wright?
Yeah, maybe. There's always a few players like that, that as I'm watching, I've watched so many. I think I'm up to like 212, so right. I can't think of every single one. But no, he was, and you know what made it interesting, Steve, is
what
I started out watching him knowing that I watched him last summer and didn't like him at all at left tackle.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, this guy's really good at right tackle.
I was reading up on him too, and I watched a little bit of it. I don't know as much as I watched film, and I also read some evaluations. I mean, the guy gave up like 0 sacks at right tackle. He gave up a total of maybe 7 sacks his entire career, 4 of which were at left tackle, like you said.
Yep.
When he got to right tackle, nobody was getting by him. And also, when you watch him on film, he's got some grit. I mean, he likes to be like the point of the spear for the team, right?
Yeah, no, he's a mammoth guy with a lot of mass, good feet. See, it's funny. It's really interesting, Steve. And like I said, I try to learn from, offensive line coaches and people that know far more than I do about offensive line play. But I thought at left tackle, his feet looked slow and plodding. At right tackle, I thought he looked quick. And again, it's different movements, because you're kick sliding with a different foot. Your hand usage is different. Just as an example, I remember watching Penei Sewell as a rookie with the Lions, not this year, but the year before, and he moved from left tackle, which he played at Oregon, to right tackle with the Lions, and I thought he was terrible at right tackle, and most people agreed. Now, he's gotten used to it, but, there's a whole difference. People just assume that, oh, yeah, you can just switch sides. Just like, as you said, Steve, people assume, oh, if you're a tackle in college, but you don't have great tackle traits, just throw him at guard, no problem at all. Doesn't always work that way.
All right, so we've got another guy from Oklahoma, Anton Harrison. Left tackle, but is he a left tackle in the NFL?
I personally think he can play that, and I liked him as well. I think that he's got great size. He's got really good arm length. For whatever it's worth, other than a reflection of athleticism, he ran a great 40 time. He's got, as I said, desired arm length. He's got strong, heavy hands. I thought he had core strength. I thought he had good movement. I think he can play left tackle. I think he possesses that size, length, strength, movement profile that is demanded. And I thought he had heavy hands. So, again, I think he can line up and play left tackle. Now, the question you always have with these guys, Brownie, is can they do that year one? And it depends where you draft a guy, obviously, and it depends on your team's needs. But, if you need a left tackle in your draft, let's say you need a left tackle in your mind and you draft Anton Harrison late in the first round, you'd like him to be your starting left tackle. That's an unknown. That I can't answer. But I think he can play left tackle in the NFL.
What about drive blocking for him? Because I've seen some of what I saw and some of what I've read, average hand punch, not driving people off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and most of the time that issue stems from footwork and balance. I think there were snaps, because I watch an awful lot of him. I think I watched 7 or 8 games, and then I watched all of Marvin Mims' pass targets, which, of course, give me pass protection as well. So that combination gave me a lot of snaps of Anton Harrison. So I think, when you talk about that, you want to see core strength. You want to see a guy generate strength and power off the ball. You want to see him continue to stay on balance and move his feet so he doesn't fall off blocks. I would say that a lot of that, based on conversations I had, is coaching and can be taught. Like everybody, particularly offensive linemen, because of what they face in college and the fact that there's so much spread, they have so much to learn and to be coached up when they get to the league. So I think he's capable of that, Brownie. Can he do that from day one? Probably not, but I think it's in his body.
Okay. We move along, to one guy, Matthew Bergeron, the offensive tackle from Syracuse. Early on, people just knew that the Bills were going to grab this guy because it's so easy, because Syracuse is right down the road.
Right.
He's a big dude. It's a perfect fit. What do you think?
Now, here's a guy from everybody I've heard that I've spoken to believe is a guard. And again, he played tackle, obviously. He had 39 starts, 31 at left tackle and 8 at right tackle. But a lot of people think this guy's a guard because now this guy is a really good run blocker, He's got power on initial contact. He's got core strength. He controls, he sustains. He runs his feet really well. I think theoretically, could he play tackle? I think he probably could, but the word I get is clearly that he's a guard. But the issue with him, I think, at tackle is range. And as I mentioned, third down, he's not a rangy guy in pass protection. So he's not as high level an athlete as what you're looking for on the left side in particular, just because of the range. And he's had some issues. Like the one guy that gave him a ton of trouble this year was Jared Verse from Florida State, who chose not to come out. Most people thought if he came out, he'd be a top 15 pick, but he had big problems with him. But he also had some really, really good one-on-one pass protection snaps against Miles Murphy from Clemson. So, I think that he was an efficient pass protector at tackle, but not a rangy guy. Whereas he's a physical, mauling type run blocker. And I think that's the reason a lot of people see him as a guard.
Okay. And feet to kind of get out and pull, right? His feet are pretty good.
Yeah, oh no, he was used a puller both inside and outside. I thought he showed good movement in space. And the one thing I look for when I see guys pull is their balance and their body control. Because a lot of guys, as you know, Brownie, they can get out and they can move a little bit, but then when they have to make the block, they're off balance, they fall down, so you want to see balance and body control so they can strike with some force.
Yeah.
Right.
The next guy is a mountain of a human, quite literally, Dawand Jones from Ohio State. Probably going to be a factor in the second round, many people are thinking now. But what can be said about how he carries all that weight? Because 375 pounds that's a lot, and the concern is how does he move with it?
Unfortunately, from what I've gathered, he probably carries it a little too well to the dinner line because people have said that he's close to 400 pounds now. People who I know that and who I respect. That's the concern with him, Brownie. I really liked his tape a lot. I mean, his arm length is 36 3/8. His wingspan is like Giannis in the NBA. I mean, it's ridiculous. So you're talking about a guy that is a big man that is really, really difficult to get around. And while his feet wouldn't be the lightest of any tackle you've seen, he certainly does not have heavy or plodding feet. But the problem, from what I've been told by people who would know, is that the commitment to the game is not exactly what it needs to be. And that's a problem. But if you're just looking at the tape, if he was a clean prospect in terms of everything else, you're dealing with a really strong prospect with rare size and length plus athleticism. I mean, you know how hard these guys are to get around? I mean, he doesn't have to have great feet, but it's good enough. And he's just so hard to get around.
Just for reference, how close would you compare him to a Cordy Glenn?
Oh, God, I remember when he came out. He was Georgia, right?
Yeah, second-round pick of the Bills. Long arms, 36 inches, probably about 335 or so. He played
bigger.
left tackle. So, I mean, I don't know. I know Cordy wasn't as tall as this guy, but the arm length was the same. Yeah. Body type was kind of similar.
Yeah, I don't remember Glenn in detail, so it's hard for me to answer that. But, when I think of, Dawand Jones, I think of the Orlando Browns, the Trent Browns,
Okay. Much bigger.
Those are the guys I think are the better comparisons.
Is it like, did he have as good a tape as, say, a guy like Mekhi Becton?
Oh, probably not quite as good as Becton. Becton had some really good tape coming out. And he was obviously a very big man as well. Hasn't worked out for him, unfortunately. But yeah, if you're just looking at tape, I think Jones, my sense is if Jones was a clean prospect off the field, that he would be a top 20 guy. That would be my sense.
Okay. Steve, hit him with your favorite guy.
Joe Tippmann, center guard from Wisconsin. I picked, he might have been the first name I threw out of this draft at Brownie saying that's our guy.
Did you talk to Leonard about him? He was the DC there,
No, I didn't talk to anybody.
Yeah. I like Tippmann a lot. I watched his tape. I mean, this guy is a big offensive center, has a great frame. He's athletic. Don't forget, that's an offense at Wisconsin. That's old school stuff. I mean, that's a heavy emphasis on the zone run game. Good amount of pin pull, gap scheme is what they do. I mean, this is a running offense. This guy's consistently efficient executing all kinds of blocks. I mean, there were certain blocks, without going into the, being nerdy about it, but there are certain blocks that was real specific to what they did that he was asked to do. But I mean, I really like this guy. I mean, I thought for a big man, he had outstanding snap to step quickness as a run blocker and in pass protection. He could climb to the second level. He was really good with stunts and games just because he was so long and athletic. Again, I don't want to say I'm an expert on offensive centers, but I really like this guy's tape a lot.
Yeah, he's a 6'6" guy, and carries over 300 pounds. Down inside
easily does not look is not a fat looking guy at all.
Right, exactly. He's down inside, and it was he does stand. I mean, he's a big, tall for a center. You always kind of think of a center as being one of those guys, fire plug guys. He's not that. He's more of an NFL kind of guy, right?
Well, it's funny you say that because my favorite center in last year's draft was Fortner out of Kentucky, who played every snap as the starting center for the Jaguars this year and played really well. I actually liked him more than Linderbaum or Cam Jurgens, who the Eagles drafted in the second round. And as I said, Fortner, he was 6'4" out of Kentucky, and he played every snap, had a really solid year, and Tippmann's even bigger than that.
Right.
So, Greg, we've got a little extra time here. You told me you did this guy, so I'll pick your brain a little bit because I really like the tape that he had. Jalen Duncan from Maryland, the offensive tackle, played left tackle there for the Terps. And I don't know, there's just something about the way he moves. I feel like there's uncommon athleticism there for a guy his size because he's a pretty big kid.
Yeah, he's almost 6'6", really, really good arm length. I think that he has what you want. He's a 4-year starter at left tackle. I think he has 39 starts in his career. I think he moves well. He's got light feet out of his stance, getting to his set points. I think he tracks well in the run game. What I look for with pass protection is the kick slide. Do they bend their knees? Do they play on balance? Are they efficient with their lateral movement? Can they redirect? How do they use their hands? You want to see them. You want to see them strike with their hands to the inside. Not wrap around because then you let guys get into your chest, and you can weigh 400 pounds, and if a guy gets into your chest, you've got a problem. So I really liked his tape. I'm curious to see where he goes. He's kind of been lost in the discussion, Brownie.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe teams don't see him as highly as I just suggested. Maybe there's other issues involved that I don't know about. I haven't heard his name, but I think the tape's pretty good.
Yeah, Jalen Duncan. For me, I don't know. I liked a lot of what I saw. I didn't think I don't know if he's necessarily put it all together yet. And so maybe that's why he's a little bit below some of the names we hear more often. I just think there's an enticing ceiling there based on the athleticism and some of what we've seen.
Yeah, no, as I said, I like his tape. So there's other issues. Teams get obviously all this information. Sometimes networks get all this information, as to about a guy's character. I don't get all that stuff. So, I'm just sitting in my office watching the tape, but I think the tape's pretty good.
Good stuff, Greg. Appreciate it. What are you going to do? Where are you going to watch the draft? You going to be on the air working, or
he'll be helping us out on draft night?
Yeah, I'm going to help you. No, I'll probably be watching at home or in my office. And I remember last year because I was, waiting for you guys to make your pick in the first round. I was just sitting in my office with the TV on here, watching the draft at the same time I was watching more tape. So, but Steve, you know me, I'm a little crazy.
All right, I got this for you as well. Last year, they had a ton of movement in the draft in the first round, lots of trade. What's your gut tell you about this year? You think there'll be as much movement with the quarterbacks involved?
Yeah, and I think that this is going to be a really interesting draft, Steve, because I would bet, and I've had this confirmed by some people, that this could be the kind of draft where, one team could have a player as the 12th best player on their board, and another team could have that same player as the 35th best player on their board. I think there's going to be a lot of that in this draft, and I think that leads to teams wanting to trade. Whether there's trading partners is always the question because, every year people say there's going to be a lot of trades. And then sometimes you get through the first round and there's not many at all. But I think that there's probably, as teams put grades on players. I would bet that no team has more than 17 or 18 first-round grades this year on players. But, you have to draft someone. That's the way it is. When it's your turn, you got to draft.
Greg, we look forward to seeing you on draft night on our live stream. Me and Maddie will catch up with you after the Bills pick.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, guys, really appreciate it. Thanks so much.